Everyone,
Good morning.
how is everybody?
Awake and ready.
Good. Nice. For those who don't know us, I'm Swami Daiva, and this is Swami Gangamata, and we're delighted to be sharing this morning with you. Thank you for taking time to come and be with us. I'd like to start this morning one more reading. This is from Whispers from Eternity. This is Yogananda's book of prayer, demands, and poems. And he said, this was one of the scriptures for which he was born. This is number 48. May the Niagara of my joys inundate all hearts. May the Niagara of my heart's joy pour unceasingly upon all I meet. May that flooding power drown their difficulties. Let their melancholia then be calmed to contentment by moonbeams of my bliss. Oh, I will be a tornado of laughter, lifting up and destroying superstructures of sorrow. Sweeping over endless miles of suffering egos, I will churn up and blow away the troubles from all hearts. In lightning flashes of my mirth, I will swiftly expose to view the panorama of thy beauty, so long obscured in the nocturnal darkness of unseeing, uncaring minds. Bless me, that by a single shaft of my light, the gathering gloom of ages, nurtured in the dark corners of human minds, be put to flight. Through thy grace, even one sudden flash of wisdom will dispel the accumulations of dark error, though it lasted countless millions of years. I recall, and I've told this a time or two, but it's still really vivid in my mind. I recall a time for many years, for decades, I've had a very good friend who we've tended to meditate long periods of time together on a regular basis. And we've not been in the same environs for quite a number of years, a decade or more now, except intermittently. But we were having one of those kind of regatherings, and we were having a long meditation. It was just delicious. We were just lost in the silence of spirit, and it was so lovely. And we got up at the end of it and bowed out and walked out of the temple, and I made some comment, and it had just an overtone of disparagement about some condition of life. And he just looked at me and he said, "Let the whining begin." I thought about it. I thought, we're either in the moment, we're either in an intuitive flow, we're in the presence of grace, we're in the presence of life itself, in which case, really, everything's just the way it's supposed to be, or we're outside of that, and the intellect gets involved, and it starts slicing and dicing and trying to patch together, as that song so beautifully talked about. It tries to create constructs of reality that somehow will encompass and engender the joy that will only be found in the immediate moment. And it was just such a brilliant moment because, the second the mind gets involved, let the whining begin. And really, the mind, a good mind is a great tool. It's a very, very good thing to have. But it's just a tool. And if its only value is if it needs to be applied to something that needs that tool. It's a little like a guy walking through life with a skill saw, and every circumstance his response is to turn the skill saw on. What a silly thing. But that's what we do with the mind. The mind just jumps right in there. It tries to be an alpha in the pack, but it's not. It's a beta. By design, it's a beta. The soul is the alpha. Intuition is the alpha. A direct and immediate contact with life through the function and immediacy of intuition and God contact. That's how our life is supposed to unfold. And then the mind is great. When we need the mind, we just pull it out. We, cut something, we sharpen it up, we do something, then we put it back away and rest in the intuitive flow. We have a real privilege today. Renunciation is a universal thing. Renunciation is the self-offering, the offering of all that we are into that intuitive flow of God's presence, into being completely in the moment throughout all of life and letting nothing, renouncing everything that gets in the way of that. You can have lots of things around you and be a renunciate. You can have nothing around you and be a renunciate. It's a condition of the heart and mind. And it's a practice that one has to cultivate across time. And there are a group of people who, really are working on that. And they take a vow of renunciation, a vow of being a Swami, of just nothing is mine. Nothing is mine. Nothing belongs to me. No matter what is asked of me, I will do it. But nothing. I'll turn and walk away right now with nothing except my love for God and a willingness to be in the moment and receive whatever's there. There's a great soul who was one of the spiritual greats of the last century, Swami Shivananda. And he has, there are many tributaries from the consciousness of God's presence that flowed into this world through his life. And one of those tributaries has caught up and inspired the life of Swami Sankarananda. He is here with us. He felt the calling, the intuitive understanding that his life should be for this period of time, however long that is, one of complete surrender. He makes the joke that he both dresses and packs at the same time. He has nothing except what he wears. He is walking moment by moment. He has no agenda. He does have a cell phone. He's not completely lost, but it is a tool that he uses in service of his walk to bring the light of peace and God's presence into this world. And we had a delightful satsang with him. He arrived here yesterday afternoon. We spent a couple hours helping him refresh, and then we shared a 2-hour satsang that was absolutely lovely last night and so full of inspiration. And you want to talk about a brilliant man telling you the power of inspiration versus and intuition versus the intellect. And just the byproduct of that is pure joy. I'd like to ask him if he would just share for about the next 15 or 20 minutes, whatever comes to him to share. Swamiji, would you? Please. Yeah. And we'll need to do this. You can bring your banana or not. Don't want to get too far away from that thing. Okay, we'll try one more here. Oh boy, did we fix that good. Can you make that work? Okay. There you go, sir. Okay.
Om, good morning. Good morning. God bless you. Om. I brought a prop. I'll use it in just a moment. So just in case, this is not for my food. Not for now. Later. So thought exists. Thought exists. All thought exists. All thought exists. It's not that thought is good or bad. Without thought, there's no world. So thought exists. All thoughts exist. And we think, we think, by the way. We think that we think. This is one of our challenges. We associate with thoughts. We associate ourselves with thoughts. We associate ourselves with thoughts. We limit ourselves by associating ourselves with thoughts. We create our own neighborhood based upon the thoughts we associate with. So when we associate with thoughts of fear or anger or grief, and of course these must exist, no world, no thought, no world. When we associate with these thoughts, we put ourselves in a very dark neighborhood, the slum. When we associate with divine thought, when we associate with love and with light and with acceptance of all, then we're really accepting God. We accept God into what we call God, into our life. And then we put ourselves in the palace. And this world exists to let us find our rightful home. Our rightful home, not the slums. So we think that I always laugh inside when I use the word we think, but not sure a better one hasn't come. So we associate with this idea of ourselves as a limited being. And we will say, I'm white or I'm black, I'm Republican or I'm Democrat, I'm a meat eater or I'm a vegan, I live in Oregon, I'm an American. We say these things because we're simply associating with these thoughts. The reality is that we're not these thoughts. We're no thought. No thought defines us. We have no definition. There's no way to define us. Because you see, the thoughts are in us. All thoughts are in us. Here's as close as we can get to truth with words, as this is all within us. All of these universes are thought itself, thought projected. We categorize thought as smart or stupid, intelligent or not intelligent, right? But thought is intelligence. Thought is intelligence. Thought is the manifestation, the projection of Satchidananda, of existence, knowledge, bliss. Thought is that manifestation, the projection. But we walk through this world with this belief, this association with ourselves as a limited being. And that is our challenge. That is the cause of our suffering. That is the cause of the struggle finally. That is the cause of the fear and the pain. It's the association with the thought. The thought must exist, but it's the association with the thought. It's the attachment to that thought. When we talked last night, there's a teaching from Jesus Christ, and it goes like this. Jesus says, do not worry for the morrow, let the morrow worry for itself. And this thought, this divine thought, and divine statement became so important on pilgrimage for me, because that allowed me, as I began to live my commitment. I'd made a commitment, but the actual walking of it is the living of it, if you will. So as I began to live that commitment, that thought became central to the pilgrimage. That thought became a set of rules. Do not ask for anything. Be always kind. Do not carry. Do not carry. And at first, do not carry more than you need. But when we do a deep evaluation of what we need, we find out with faith our needs are covered. So it becomes possible even to walk, to live without any attachment, without anything, without any attachment even to thought itself, right? That I am this or I am that. But here's our challenge. We say we believe. We say we believe. And there is, we could say, a part of us, this intuitive self, the highest self, where there's just no question of that, where what we say about thoughts existing and being within you and the truth of you being ineffable and Satchidananda and not being able to define it, the intuitive self will have no argument with any of this because the intuitive self knows. But the intuitive self, of course, is silent. And meanwhile, we're carrying this character that is not silent. And it's called our mind, right? And this association with a group of thoughts, even though all thoughts are possible, all thoughts exist, I'm associated with this set of them, and I carry my association everywhere I go. So everywhere I go, as long as I'm associated with these, I carry my color and my beliefs and my requirements, my needs. I carry all of that with me. Not even thinking that I can change them, that I can change my association. Not even thinking that I can change my association, that I can be something different. Very, very limited. So when Jesus says, do not worry for the morrow, let the morrow worry for itself, Jesus tells us, release all of your baggage, trust in the Lord for all. Don't carry anything. Don't carry the physical, don't carry the thoughts, don't carry anything, let me carry it for you. Trust in me, trust in the Lord. We say we believe, but the reality is we live our lives as if we do not. I'll say it a different way. We live our lives proving that we do not believe, right? We live our lives as proof that we do not believe. It's demonstration of it. We could call ourselves in the world functional agnostics or functional atheists because the reality is we hear it, but we're not fully integrated with that truth yet. The mind is not on board. The mind is not on board. The mind has its own personality, and intellect is the ladder. Intellect is the tool that we're given to allow us to climb from the hell of attachment to the slum to the heaven of attachment to the divine alone. Intellect is the tool. We have this magical ability to change our thoughts, and that is finally our salvation. We can change our thoughts. We don't change our thoughts, we change our association. We tune a different frequency because the thoughts exist, right? So we change the frequency that we receive. So instead of receiving and attaching to thoughts that I'm good or I'm bad, we can attach to the thought I'm God. We can attach to the thought I am the divinity. We can attach to the thought that I am kind. Bless you. We can attach to any of these. They're all possible for us. So the practical question becomes how? How? And I'll share with you just this magic of, so first, how did I know this? I never set about changing my thoughts, but what I realize standing here now is that I did. Now, the I here is an interesting I, because the I that I thought I was couldn't have changed anything. The I that I thought I was still exists as a set of thoughts floating around in God itself. But by changing the frequency, the thoughts that I associated with became completely different. And where I thought that I was a businessman, and I thought that I was successful, and I thought that I was wealthy, and I thought that I was this and that, and I lived in this common world with things, thinking that I owned things, but finally realizing that it was the things that owned me. And with all of the cravings and all of the worldly desires, and now there's a different world. And what I can tell you from here is, well, both worlds exist. I experienced one, now I experience a different. And that somehow I was able to change the thoughts. And all of us are involved in this, by the way. We're all involved in the same magic because we're all here today, which means we are aware of this intuitional being, this silence inside us, and we're striving to bring our life into alignment with that, to bring our thoughts into alignment with that. So how? What? And so I'll share a story, and now we use the banana. When I first went to ashram in India, and this is only a few years ago, I had committed myself to service. I didn't know what path that would take. I'd committed myself to find God inside, whatever it took. And I was given these amazing opportunities, and one of them was to travel to ashram. And I'd been in the ashram, and by the way, I'd gone from a 4,000 square foot house to a 40-pound backpack. I still had much more stuff then than I have now, but what a relief that was. You know, what a relief that was. What an unburdening that was to go from so much stuff to a 40-pound backpack. I was still attached to that backpack, though. But I felt joy, this joy that we truly are. I felt it coming through, and it was just amazing. It was nothing that I had any memory of experiencing before. And one morning I went to have breakfast. I'd been in the ashram only a couple of weeks. And I called this spiritual boot camp because in that tradition, Shivananda Vedanta Yoga, it's, and it is certainly here as well. The schedule is very tight, and there's really not much time for thinking. There's time for devoting and for practicing and for beginning to do what is necessary to associate with different thoughts, to change the frequency. And of course, we have all these magical tools. We have the practice of yoga asanas and pranayama and kriya yoga and rest and satsang and walks in the woods and all of these, and then the intellect. So I picked up a banana and I was sitting at a table. And now here's the question for you, the audience participation. How would you open this banana? Which end do you take? This. How many would say this? How many say this? Okay. So I never had the thought of this. So I picked it up and started to struggle with it because the banana was green. So I was sitting there doing this. And the person next to me said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Open it from this end. They said that's what the monkeys do. And there are a lot of monkeys in India. So they showed me just to take it and peel like that, right? And what I learned was that in doing that, it would open every time, regardless of whether it was green or overripe or whatever condition. So those who open from that end. So the next time I picked up the banana, what did I do? I tried to open it from this end. Why? Why? Because it's habit. So we have a habit of associating with these limited thoughts. That's the challenge we're dealing with. It is truly that simple. Now, the thoughts themselves are complex, but the challenge is simple. The challenge is we are in the wrong neighborhood because of our association and the concept that I'm this. I think I'm this. By the way, I'm neither this nor this, right? But so what happens? What's the process? The process would literally, now if I opened a banana every day, I would have gotten this very quickly. It took some time because I don't. So every time I would pick up the banana, I would reach for the stem, and then I'd take a moment and look at the banana, and the thought would come, wow, there's a better way. I know there's a better way. This is a very important thought to associate with. I know there's a better way. That thought is salvation. That thought is an intuitive thought. And that thought that there's a better way is an intuitive thought. And that thought is always coming to us, right? That thought, there's a better way, is always coming to us. That's why we're never satisfied, because this thought is always coming. There's a better way, there's a better way. And we can live and try to ignore it, but the reality is at some point we have to satisfy that thought that there's a better way. Well, in the case of the banana, the better way was this. So I can learn it. I can learn it. And once I learn it, it's a habit, and I'll never forget it. Right? So finally, after some time, after daily practice of, and it's amazing how long it really takes, by the way, because that habit was deeply embedded. Every time I would pick up a banana, I would still go to open it at the top. I mean, this shows us how deeply this thought that I am this limited being is embedded. But intuitively and intellectually, we know it's false. Right? We know it is false. We know that it's not who we are, what we are. So what does that mean for us? That means that associating with the divine is a process of changing the habit, the habitual association with the thought of limitation. We know that when I do that I surrender my mind. You know, Jesus, one other teaching, he was asked by one of his disciples, what is the commandment? What is the most important commandment of the old teachings? And his answer was this. He said, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, all of thy soul, and all of thy mind." Now, Jesus is a yogi. And what he's telling us is yoga. He didn't say, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God." He didn't leave it at that. He didn't say, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God completely." He said, with the heart, with the soul, and with the mind. What he's telling us is we have to bring these three together. And then in other teachings, he tells us very clearly the mind is the challenge, that bringing the mind into alignment is the challenge. And he tells us in Sermon on the Mount how to bring the mind into alignment. Right? He tells us the meek shall inherit the earth, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall know peace, etc., etc. So he's telling us, do this, and this is the process of surrender. So that's the key for us. And we're all on the path. And the reality of us is all the same. You are not limited. You are in no way, shape, or form a limited being. You are Satchidananda. You only think yourself to be something different. That is the absolute reality of this world. That is the absolute truth of you. The only limiting factor is the association with a thought of limitation. It's natural because I see outside, I sense outside, so I'm associating with these thoughts outside. It's not the truth. So this path is to bring us back home and to bring us into alignment with the truth of us. And the intellect is that tool. There's nothing wrong with the intellect. There's nothing wrong with the mind. There's nothing bad. But it's a tool, and we must use it for a tool. And the intellect is that tool to bring us back to reside in the intuitive self. Thank you so much. It's been a joy being with you this past day. It's only a day. It seems like much longer than a day. It's been such a joy. God bless you all. God bless you all.
It's been eternity in that day.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He had a second commandment, like unto the first, he said, which is love thy neighbor as thyself. And this great soul is walking that as a living thing. So thank you, Swamiji, so much for being here. Yeah. For those who would like to spend more time with him, after service, there will be healing prayers concurrently. For those who are doing healing prayers, come in. You'll have another chance at the satsang, but we'll do a pilgrimage satsang. And then afterwards, those who would like to go to lunch with Swamiji can gather, and they'll figure out where to go, probably be New Seasons, and actually spend some time with him. So, okay, before he goes on to his next sharing, which is a New Renaissance, and then he walks off, and the next sharing he has is in Olympia, Washington. So, anyway. I don't think there's any more to go today. Let's take a moment of silence. Let's feel for the great blessings of